The story of America's most dangerous gang founders continues. In Part 3, we explore the lives of individuals who reshaped entire communities through sheer force of will and an unrelenting thirst for power. These are not ordinary figures. They are architects of movements that influenced the streets, shaped alliances, and defied authority in ways few could imagine. What decisions pushed them to the top of their worlds? What rivalries fueled their rise and ultimately defined their legacies? Each name carries a history of bold actions and a pursuit of dominance that left an undeniable impact. Number 7. Sylvester Scott of the Peru Street Boys gang. Sylvester Scott, known as a key figure in Los Angeles gang history, was the founder of the Peru Street Boys, a group that would later become instrumental in forming what is now widely recognized as the Bloods. His actions and decisions shaped the trajectory of gang culture in Compton and beyond, carving out a reputation that reflected both his influence and the impact of the gang he established. The story of the Peru Street Boys begins in 1969, a time of significant social and racial tension in Los Angeles. Scott, along with Benson Owens, founded the group as a response to the growing dominance and aggression of the Crips, another gang that had begun asserting control over neighborhoods. A pivotal event that fueled the creation of the Peru Street Boys was an attack by Crips members on Scott and Owens. This event solidified their determination to create a group capable of defending itself and challenging the Crips' influence. Under Scott's leadership, the Peru Street Boys quickly became known for their fierce opposition to the Crips. They operated primarily in the Compton area, establishing a stronghold and forming alliances with other small groups who shared their desire for autonomy. Over time, these alliances evolved, and by the early 1970s, they formed the foundation of what became the Bloods. The term Bloods originated from members of these groups calling one another Blood, a term of endearment and unity. Scott's reputation as a dangerous figure grew alongside the gang's activities. Accounts from that era describe confrontations where the Peru Street Boys, under his guidance, would actively push back against Crips' control. The gang engaged in numerous acts designed to assert dominance, including territorial disputes and coordinated efforts to resist external threats. Scott was seen as a figurehead who embodied the gang's resilience and defiance, traits that earned him both fear and respect within the community. As the leader of the Peru Street Boys, Scott's influence extended beyond street-level conflicts. His strategic alliances with groups like the Brims, Bishops, and Denver Lanes solidified a broader coalition that gave rise to the Bloods. This transformation marked a significant moment in the history of Los Angeles gangs, setting the stage for decades of rivalry between the Bloods and the Crips. Despite his role in shaping the Bloods, there is limited information on specific legal actions taken against Scott, such as arrests, indictments, or convictions. Unlike some other high-profile gang figures, Scott's personal criminal record and ultimate fate remain less documented in public records. While many of his contemporaries faced lengthy sentences or violent ends, it is unclear whether Scott met a similar fate or faded into obscurity as newer leaders took the reins. Number 6. Terry Lee, Southwest T, Flannery of Black Mafia family gang. Terry Lee Flannery, widely known as Southwest T, is a key figure in the Black Mafia family gang, one of the most notorious narcotic trafficking organizations in American history. Born on January 10, 1970 in southwest Detroit, Michigan, Terry, alongside his brother Demetrius Big Meech Flannery, built an empire around the distribution of illicit substances, which spanned several U.S. states and reached as far as Mexico. Though he initially started in the narcotic trade at a young age, his association with BMF became legendary for its reach, its wealth, and its ruthless tactics. The Black Mafia family was born in the late 1980s, when Terry and Demetrius transitioned from small-time dealers to masterminds of a massive narcotic operation. By the early 2000s, the BMF was operating on an international scale, importing and distributing large quantities of illicit substances, including different illicit substances, into major cities like Detroit, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. Their network, which at its peak moved hundreds of kilograms of illicit substances each month, was known not only for its efficiency, but also for the lavish lifestyle it promoted. Terry and his brother became synonymous with wealth, power, and an air of invincibility. Despite their success, the Fener brothers' criminal empire did not remain hidden forever. Their lavish lifestyle, complete with mansions, luxury cars, and expensive jewelry, drew the attention of law enforcement. In 2005, the Drug Enforcement Administration launched a large-scale investigation into the Black Mafia family, ultimately leading to the arrest of Terry and his brother, along with dozens of their associates. In 2008, after years of legal battles, both brothers were sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for their roles in operating a continuing criminal enterprise. The charges included orchestrating the trafficking of illicit substances and laundering the proceeds through various businesses and luxury goods. During his time in the BMF, Terry was instrumental in running the operations on the West Coast, particularly in Los Angeles, where he expanded the organization's reach. He was known for his strategic mindset and his ability to maintain control over the operations despite the growing risk of exposure. However, his criminal activities were not without consequences. There are reports of violent incidents and fierce rivalries, and the BMF's operations were marked by extreme measures to avoid detection, including the use of customized vehicles and sophisticated money laundering schemes. In May 2020, after serving 13 years of his 30-year sentence, Terry was released from federal prison due to health concerns amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. His release was part of a broader initiative by the Federal Bureau of Prisons to reduce prison populations during the health crisis. Terry was granted compassionate release and moved to home confinement, where he continues to serve the remainder of his sentence under house arrest. Number 5. Nikki Barnes, founder of the Council Gang. Leroy Nicholas Barnes, known as Nikki Barnes, was a figure who rose from the streets of Harlem to become one of the most prominent figures in New York City's organized crime scene during the 1970s. Born on October 15, 1933, Barnes grew up in a challenging environment, navigating life amidst familial struggles and the lure of fast money on the streets. After leaving school early and encountering legal troubles, he served time in prison, where he connected with individuals who profoundly influenced his future, including affiliates of organized crime families. These connections marked the beginning of his transformation into a figure of notoriety. Barnes was not just a participant, but an architect of an empire. In 1972, he established the Council, a 7-member syndicate designed to oversee and control the distribution of illicit substances in Harlem. Modeled after the Italian-American Mafia, the Council managed disputes, allocated territories, and set the rules for their operations. Members included trusted allies such as Joseph Hayden and Guy Fisher, who shared Barnes's ambition for dominance. Through a combination of strategic partnerships and ruthless enforcement, Barnes and his associates expanded their network beyond Harlem, stretching into neighboring states and even into Canada. Barnes was a master of maintaining appearances while orchestrating one of the most lucrative and covert operations in the region. The network was bolstered by partnerships with international suppliers, enabling the Council to operate on a grand scale. Barnes's opulent lifestyle, featuring tailor-made suits, luxury vehicles, and high-profile appearances, added to his reputation. By 1976, his network involved a vast chain of distributors, with Barnes amassing an extraordinary fortune estimated at $50 million. His calculated maneuvers and ability to evade authorities earned him the nickname Mr. Untouchable. However, his empire was not immune to scrutiny. In 1977, Barnes's decision to pose for a magazine cover under the title Mr. Untouchable drew the ire of law enforcement and even President Jimmy Carter. This audacious act triggered intensified efforts to dismantle his operations. That same year, Barnes faced prosecution on charges related to his activities, culminating in a life sentence without parole in January 1978. While in prison, Barnes discovered betrayals within his ranks, including personal affronts from trusted associates. Feeling abandoned and enraged by the collapse of his empire, Barnes made a calculated decision to cooperate with authorities. His testimony and insider knowledge led to the indictment of dozens, including key figures in the council and his former allies. By 1983, the council was effectively dismantled, leaving behind a trail of broken allegiances and shattered power. Barnes's cooperation earned him a reduced sentence, and he was released from prison in 1998 under a new identity through the Federal Witness Protection Program. On June 18, 2012, Barnes passed away from cancer, his death remaining unreported under his original name due to his protected status. It was only years later that his passing was revealed. Number 4. Samuel Christian of Philadelphia Black Mafia Gang. Samuel Christian, born on March 20, 1939 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was a prominent figure in the city's underworld as the founder of the Philadelphia Black Mafia. Throughout his life, he was known by several aliases, including Richard Carter, Sam Bea Christian, and Suleiman Bey. His involvement in various illicit activities and his leadership within the Black Mafia left a significant mark on Philadelphia's criminal history. Christian's criminal career was marked by numerous incidents that highlighted his dangerous persona. In 1972, he was implicated in the demise of Tyrone "Fat Ty" Palmer, who was fatally shot at Club Harlem. The following year, in 1973, Christian was suspected in the demise of Major Coxon and the assault of several individuals at Coxon's residence. Despite these serious allegations, a lack of willing witnesses prevented his conviction in both cases. Under Christian's leadership, the Philadelphia Black Mafia was involved in various criminal enterprises, including the distribution of illicit substances, extortion, and other violent acts. One particularly notorious incident occurred on January 4, 1971, when 8 members of the Black Mafia entered Dubrow's furniture store on South Street. The group looted the store, assaulted and restrained its employees, and set the establishment on fire, resulting in the demise of a janitor. Although Christian was observed at the scene, he was never charged for this crime. Christian's criminal activities eventually led to his arrest. In 1971, he and 2 accomplices committed a robbery at the Charles Record store in Harlem. During the incident, Christian engaged in a firefight with police, injuring an officer. He was arrested but managed to evade custody by using an alias and fleeing. In 1973, after being placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list as the 321st person, he was apprehended in Detroit. Christian was subsequently convicted for the robbery and the assault on the NYPD officer, leading to his imprisonment. After serving his sentence, Christian was paroled in November 1988. However, his freedom was short-lived, as he was arrested again in 1990 for possession of illicit substances. His final public mention occurred on January 22, 2002, when he was detained for a parole violation. Samuel Christian passed away on March 6, 2016 in Philadelphia, just shy of his 77th birthday. Number 3. Peter, Pistol Pete. Rollick, founder of Sex Money Murda. Peter Pistol Pete. Rollick, born around 1974 in the Soundview section of the Bronx, New York, rose to notoriety as one of the most dangerous figures in the world of organized crime during the late 20th century. Growing up in the Soundview houses, a low-income housing development, Rollick experienced a turbulent childhood marked by societal challenges that shaped his early life and ambitions. As a young man, he navigated the streets during the height of the crack epidemic, a period of significant turmoil in New York City. It was during these formative years that Rollick began building his reputation, eventually founding a group that would leave an indelible mark on the urban landscape. Rollick established Sex, Money, Murder, a group initially focused on local dominance in the Bronx, but which rapidly expanded its reach and influence. The organization, known for its loyalty-driven operations and stringent rules, became affiliated with the United Blood Nation during Rollick's time on Rikers Island. This affiliation further solidified its position as a prominent set in the larger Bloods organization, operating extensively across the East Coast. Under Rollick's leadership, the group gained infamy for its tightly controlled network and decisive enforcement of internal discipline, traits that drew both fear and grudging respect within the criminal underworld. One of the most chilling aspects of Rollick's legacy lies in the accounts of his direct involvement in orchestrating violent acts and other illicit activities. His influence extended beyond the streets, as he was accused of directing actions even while incarcerated. Rollick's downfall began with mounting legal pressure as law enforcement intensified efforts to dismantle his network. By the late 1990s, he faced charges for his alleged involvement in a series of incidents, ultimately leading to a federal indictment. His indictment included accusations of leadership over a criminal enterprise and directing acts that caused harm to individuals. Facing the possibility of a death sentence, Rollick entered a plea agreement in 2000, accepting a life sentence with additional terms ensuring severe restrictions on his communication and interactions. This plea agreement underscored the gravity of his actions and the threat he posed even from behind bars. Currently, Rollick serves his sentence at ADX Florence, a federal supermax prison in Colorado. Number 2. Kenneth Supreme, McGriff, founder of the Supreme Team Gang. Kenneth Supreme. McGriff's name is deeply etched in the chronicles of American crime, a figure whose activities cast a long shadow over Queens, New York, and beyond. Born on September 19, 1960, McGriff emerged from the Baisley Park houses in South Jamaica, Queens, to establish what would become a powerful and fearsome operation. In 1981, McGriff founded the Supreme Team, a group that rose to control an extensive network in the distribution of illicit substances, ultimately turning entire neighborhoods into their operational stronghold. Under McGriff's leadership, the Supreme Team became synonymous with strategic operations and fearsome retribution. At its zenith, the organization reportedly generated daily earnings in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, with McGriff's methods showcasing both calculated precision and ruthless control. His network operated with such efficiency and intensity that it drew national attention and law enforcement's relentless pursuit. Despite his initial incarceration in 1987, following a joint state and federal investigation, McGriff's influence remained intact. He was sentenced in 1989 for running a continuing criminal enterprise and served several years before re-entering society in the mid-1990s. Upon his release, McGriff sought to transition into film production, partnering with Irv Gotti Lorenzo, a friend and music industry mogul. Together, they ventured into entertainment, producing a film featuring notable figures such as Snoop Dogg and Ice-T. Yet prosecutors contended that these efforts masked McGriff's continued engagement in illicit dealings, claiming that the Supreme Team's operations extended into new territories, including Baltimore. McGriff's activities were marked by acts of reprisal that left a chilling legacy. In 2001, he orchestrated the targeted eliminations of two individuals, Eric E. Moneybag Smith and Troy Singleton. Smith had been involved in an incident that ended the life of one of McGriff's close associates, while Singleton was perceived as a potential threat. McGriff's involvement was confirmed through testimony and evidence, including communications that revealed his satisfaction with the outcomes of these acts. The legal consequences for McGriff's actions were severe and unrelenting. In February 2007, a federal court convicted him of organizing the retaliatory acts and overseeing the Supreme Team's enduring operations. He faced a trial where the jury deliberated on the possibility of imposing the death penalty, but ultimately sentenced him to life imprisonment without parole. As of 2021, Kenneth Supreme McGriff is serving his life sentence in a federal penitentiary housed at USP McCreary in Pine Knot, Kentucky. Number 1. Lester Lloyd Coke of the Jamaican Shower Posse Gang. Lester Lloyd Coke, known as Jim Brown, was a prominent figure in Jamaica's underworld, particularly in the West Kingston area. Born in 1948, he rose to prominence as the founder of the Shower Posse, a gang notorious for its involvement in various illicit activities. Coke's early life in Kingston's volatile neighborhoods exposed him to the political and social turmoil of the time. Initially aligned with the People's National Party, a pivotal event shifted his loyalties. At 19, after sustaining injuries, he was reportedly abandoned by his PNP associates. Members of the Jamaica Labour Party from Tivoli Gardens provided him with medical assistance, leading to his allegiance to the JLP. This allegiance was significant, as Tivoli Gardens was a JLP stronghold, and Coke's influence there grew substantially. Under the alias Jim Brown, Coke became a formidable enforcer for the JLP. His reputation for ruthlessness was well known, and he was deeply involved in the violent political landscape of the 1970s. In 1976, he was implicated in an attack on reggae artist Bob Marley and his wife, an incident believed to be politically motivated due to Marley's planned peace concert, which was perceived as a political event by some factions. By the 1980s, Coke had established the Shower Posse, a gang that expanded its operations beyond Jamaica, notably into the United States. The gang's name allegedly derived from their tendency to shower adversaries with bullets. They were involved in the distribution of illicit substances, including illicit substances, and were linked to numerous violent incidents. Coke's leadership was marked by a blend of fear and loyalty. He was known to use proceeds from the gang's activities to support the impoverished residents of Tivoli Gardens, thereby securing their allegiance. Coke's criminal activities eventually attracted international attention. In 1990, the United States Department of Justice indicted him on charges related to narcotic trafficking and violent crimes. He was arrested by Jamaican authorities and detained at the General Penitentiary in Kingston, awaiting extradition to the U.S. However, on February 23, 1992, a fire broke out in his cell under mysterious circumstances, leading to his demise from smoke inhalation. The cause of the fire was never conclusively determined, leading to widespread speculation about foul play.